What if I told you a simple pinch of salt once held more power than kings? That wars were fought over it, secret empires thrived in its shadow, and it shaped destinies from behind the scenes for millennia. In the ancient world, salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was the very lifeblood of civilization. Its unparalleled ability to preserve food fueled armies, enabling distant campaigns and averting widespread famine, fundamentally altering the course of history. Beyond sustenance, salt often served as a precious currency, sometimes worth its weight in gold, profoundly defining economic and political landscapes. Without it, survival itself was a constant, desperate struggle. Recognizing this vital truth, the earliest salt kings weren't monarchs on any visible throne. They were astute families and powerful groups who identified and exploited the strategic choke points of this indispensable mineral. They seized control of natural salt mines or dominated critical salt trade routes. Consider the legendary Via Salaria of the Roman Empire, literally the Salt Road. This ancient artery was purpose-built to ferry salt from the Adriatic coast directly into the heart of Rome. Command over such a lifeline wasn't merely about immense wealth. It meant holding the very economic pulse of an entire empire. These were the true architects, silently laying the foundations of power long before any formal decree. The journey of salt from a geological deposit to a tool of immense power began with the simple realization of its necessity. Early human settlements clustered around reliable salt sources, transforming them into valuable assets. But it was the foresight to monopolize these sources that truly ignited the era of the Salt Kings. Imagine the dawn of civilization, where securing food for the winter was a matter of life or death. Salt was the miracle preservative. Without refrigeration, a surplus harvest or a successful hunt could quickly spoil. Salt allowed communities to store provisions, feeding larger populations and, crucially, sustaining armies for extended campaigns. This direct link between salt and military might was not lost on the cunning. Natural salt springs, coastal evaporation ponds, and vast underground rock salt deposits became the most coveted territories. Control meant guaranteed sustenance, not just for one's own people, but the power to dictate terms to others. From the Saharan caravans loaded with salt slabs, traversing treacherous deserts to exchange for gold and slaves, to the ancient Chinese salt lakes where control shifted between powerful clans and emerging dynasties, the pattern was clear. Whoever held the salt held the leverage. These early salt kings meticulously guarded their sources, often employing private armies or forging strategic alliances. They understood that their wealth wasn't merely derived from selling salt, but from the absolute control over its supply. Any aspiring ruler or burgeoning city-state, no matter how powerful, ultimately depended on their benevolence or their price. This foundational control over a basic human need became the bedrock upon which unseen empires were built, quietly accumulating vast fortunes and influence without ever needing a crown or a formal decree. The true genius of the Salt Kings lay not in direct governance, but in their mastery of covert political influence. They preferred the shadows, acting as the unseen architects behind the throne, their presence felt but rarely seen. Imagine a vast, intricate network silently infiltrating every layer of the state apparatus. These magnates didn't just accumulate wealth, they wielded it as a precision instrument. They financially backed political candidates who, once in power, would faithfully serve their interests, ensuring legislation favored their burgeoning salt monopolies. They skillfully suborned high-ranking officials, from tax collectors to royal advisors, guaranteeing that newly enacted laws consistently protected their profits and stifled any competition. More chillingly, they placed their own loyalists in pivotal administrative roles: treasury managers, court advisors, even military strategists, effectively controlling the flow of state finances and, crucially, the nation's salt supply. Ancient China provides a compelling historical canvas for this phenomenon. While the state often nationalized the salt industry to centralize revenue, cunning merchant families consistently found ways to establish their own de facto sales monopolies. They manipulated market prices through artificial scarcity or strategic oversupply. They controlled distribution networks from the salt fields to the furthest villages, often establishing intricate black markets to amplify their colossal profits, especially during times of state control. The immense wealth derived from salt afforded them the means for sophisticated lobbying, discreet bribery, and even the orchestration of political instability to remove uncooperative officials. Their influence was virtually impervious to conventional challenge. They were the puppet masters, pulling the strings from within the heart of power. Beyond its economic and political might, salt held profound sacred significance across countless ancient cultures. It was indispensable in religious rituals offered as sacrifices to deities, and revered as a powerful symbol of purity, covenant, and immortality. The Salt Kings expertly leveraged this spiritual reverence to cement their authority, weaving their power into the very fabric of belief. They would grandly sponsor temples, erecting magnificent edifices dedicated to deities associated with prosperity or harvest, thereby subtly intertwining their own fortunes with divine favor. This elevated them beyond mere wealthy merchants. They became perceived as divinely ordained custodians of a sacred resource. Such a spiritual mandate created a psychological and emotional power that few temporal rulers dared to defy. To go against the Salt Kings was not just to challenge an economic force, but to risk offending the gods themselves. Think of the enduring phrase, "worth your salt," a direct echo of its ancient value. Did you know the very word salary originates from salt? Roman soldiers were often paid with salt rations, a salarium, directly linking this commodity to loyalty, survival, and the very functioning of the legions. This wasn't just a payment method, it was a powerful psychological tool. The Salt Kings, by controlling this salary, implicitly controlled the loyalty of the soldiers, the very protectors of the state. It was, in essence, the original algorithm of control, a masterstroke of psychological and spiritual manipulation that ensured their hidden power permeated every aspect of society, from the marketplace to the battlefield to the temple. The staggering wealth amassed from salt monopolies empowered the Salt Kings to expand their influence far beyond salt itself. They strategically diversified, plunging capital into virtually every vital industry of their time, from mining precious metals to cultivating vast agricultural lands that fed entire cities, and crucially, dominating maritime and land transport networks essential for moving all goods. This diversification wasn't random. It was a calculated move to create an interlocking economic web from which no one could escape. Consider a powerful Salt King dynasty in medieval Venice. Not content with controlling vital Mediterranean salt mines, They leveraged their immense profits to commission a formidable merchant fleet. This fleet didn't just carry salt. It trafficked in spices from the east, silks from China, and rare metals from distant lands, spanning continents and forging new trade routes. They owned sprawling warehouses in every major port, operated sophisticated banks that financed international trade, and even acquired extensive land holdings to secure raw materials and food supplies. This intricate, interconnected economic web positioned them at the epicenter of all commerce. They possessed the chilling ability to dictate prices across multiple commodities, control entire supply chains, and even precipitate economic crises at will simply by manipulating the flow of goods or credit. Any aspiring merchant or state reliant on trade ultimately bowed to their unseen economic might. Their influence spanned oceans and continents, creating an invisible global empire whose reach often overshadowed even the reigning dynasties. Dictating terms from the shadows, their power felt in every transaction, every market fluctuation. They were the original financial architects of a globalized world. The absolute power of the Salt Kings inevitably spawned fierce opposition. History is replete with attempts to shatter their monopolies, yet their resilience was legendary. These challenges ranged from desperate peasant revolts sparked by crippling salt prices, to audacious reform-minded rulers determined to reclaim essential revenues for the state, or even rival elite families vying for a piece of the lucrative salt pie. Take, for instance, pre-revolutionary France, where the infamous salt tax, the gabelle, became a primary catalyst for social unrest. While the crown struggled to assert direct control over the salt industry to fill its coffers and alleviate public suffering, the entrenched private monopolists cunningly found ways to circumvent new laws and protect their colossal profits. They bribed officials, exploited legal loopholes, and even fueled a massive black market for smuggled salt, undermining state authority at every turn. The Salt Kings were not icily dethroned. Their roots ran too deep. They developed sophisticated, often brutal, strategies to maintain their dominance, forming secret alliances with other powerful factions, such as landowning nobility or influential religious orders, or resorting to brutal suppression of any organized dissent. They deployed vast spy networks to identify and neutralize threats, orchestrated political assassinations of defiant officials, or simply bribed any opposition into compliance. Their chilling adaptability and sheer ruthlessness ensured their hidden power persisted through centuries, enduring every historical upheaval, every revolution. They bent but rarely broke, continuously finding new ways to assert their will, demonstrating that true power is often defined not by its direct exercise, but by its unwavering ability to resist being overthrown. The tale of the Salt Kings isn't merely a historical curiosity. Its core principles, controlling an essential resource to wield immense, often unseen, power, remain chillingly relevant in our modern world. Today, salt may no longer be the primary gold, but a new generation of commodities has taken its place, equally vital and susceptible to monopoly. Consider the colossal tech giants who control the flow of information and personal data for billions globally. They dictate what we see, how we communicate, and even how we think, much like the ancient Salt Kings controlled the supply of life-sustaining food. or the energy magnates who can sway global policy simply by adjusting oil supply, holding nations hostage to their reserves. What about pharmaceutical behemoths controlling access to life-saving medicines, or the emerging struggle for clean water resources, rapidly becoming the next essential commodity? These modern entities, much like their ancient Salt King predecessors, frequently operate behind intricate corporate veils, engage in aggressive lobbying toe-shaped legislation, and strategically place their allies in key positions within governments, international bodies, and regulatory agencies. They invest heavily in shaping public opinion, subtly manipulate markets, and influence political decisions without ever needing to explicitly claim power. Their boardrooms are the new backrooms, their algorithms, the new trade routes. The story of the Salt Kings serves as a stark reminder: true power isn't always found on a throne or in a presidential office. Often, it remains hidden, silently residing in the control of something seemingly simple, yet utterly indispensable to our lives. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, the question isn't just who are the Salt Kings of our time, but rather, can we truly recognize their manipulative hand? And more importantly, can we ever truly break free from their invisible empires? The struggle for control over life's essentials continues, a timeless echo of the ancient monopoly.